Hi everybody, this is Pat from Feed Your Brain. Today we're going to talk about the third and final voyage of the great explorer Jacques Cartier into North America. If you've missed the previous two episodes, I strongly recommend you go check them out first and then come back here for the big finale. So without further ado, let's dive right in. As we have seen in the two previous episodes, Cartier's first two voyages occurred in 1534 and 1535. But this time, several years passed before Cartier was eventually allowed to come back to the New World. What happened is that war erupted between the Kingdom of France and Charles V of Spain, and all further voyages of exploration were postponed for a few years. Unfortunately, during that time, all the natives that had been brought back from America died except for one little girl. After the war ended, a third expedition was launched, but this time Cartier was no longer in charge. A career military man, Jean-François de la Roque de Roberval, was appointed to head the voyage. Now, we don't know for certain how Cartier felt about this, but as you will soon see, his actions on the following months appear to indicate that he was pretty mad about it. Cartier left Saint-Malo on May 23, 1541, without Roberval, who was not yet ready. He commanded 5 ships with around 1,500 men who practiced various trades, as well as 50 men recruited from prisons. His mission was to explore Canada, Hochelaga, and the Kingdom of Saguenay. But this time, he also had a new mandate to build a permanent French outpost in North America. For the second and last time, Cartier went up this great river, which he had named France Prime, in honor of King François Ier. The Saint Laurent River was actually known by many names. The Algonquin people called it Magtogoak, which means the path that walks. Many people believe that Cartier is the one who gave the Saint Laurent River his name, but that is not entirely true. He actually used the name Saint Laurent to identify a bay, and later the name was given to the whole river. When writing about this river, Cartier usually called it Grand Fleuve de Hochelaga or Grande Rivière de Canada. Cartier returned to Stadacone on August 23rd and was greeted with joy. He announced the death of Donnacona to the inhabitants of the village, but told them that the others lived in France like lords and that they did not wish to return, which was good news for Agona, the new chief. However, the friendly relationship did not last, and we are not entirely certain why. What we do know is that the French abandoned the site of Sainte-Croix that had been used 6 years before. They instead chose another site more distant from Stadacone and considered safer at the mouth of the Cap Rouge River. The new site was named Charlesbourg Royal, and 2 forts were erected there. Trees called anedas were abundant, which was important for combating scurvy during the harsh winter. In addition, Cartier and his men found small stones in the area that were believed to be diamonds and gold. This explains Cartier choosing the name Cap aux Diamants for the cliff that now overlooks Quebec City. Cartier entrusted 2 boys to his friend, the chief of the village of Achelassy, situated at the foot of the Richelieu Rapids. He asked him to teach the boys his language. We don't know exactly what happened during the following winter. What is known is that there was a new epidemic of scurvy, and it seems that the natives of Stadacone held the French forts in a constant state of siege, killing at least 35 Frenchmen. Since Roberval had still not arrived in June 1542, Cartier filled barrels with what he believed were diamonds and gold, abandoned the forts, and set sail for France. In Newfoundland, he met Roberval, who ordered him to turn around and to follow him back into the Saint Laurent Valley. Believing that he had a good amount of gold and diamonds on board, and not wanting to face the belligerent natives again, Cartier disobeyed and fled to France in the middle of the night. Roberval thus found himself without experienced men. He nevertheless went to Charlesbourg Royal, which he renamed France Roi. The following winter was disastrous, and around 50 men died of scurvy. Apparently, Cartier had failed to explain to Roberval how to fight this deadly disease. In the spring of 1543, the French, severely weakened, received orders to return to France because a new war had just broken out. The small French establishment was abandoned once more. As for Cartier, the gold and the diamonds he brought back with him turned out to be worthless. The gold was actually iron pyrite, also known as fool's gold, and the diamonds were nothing more than quartz. This episode gave birth to the French expression, fake like Canadian diamonds. In the following years, France was plunged in a series of violent conflicts between Catholics and Protestants. These events forced the French crown to postpone any other attempts at establishing a permanent French presence in America. Now, 2 more attempts were made, one in Brazil, of all places, and one in Florida. We're going to cover this in our next 2 videos, but just so you know, we have to basically wait 60 years before we see the French actually seriously try to come back into the Saint Laurent Valley again. Cartier spent the rest of his life in Saint-Malo in Brittany, where he died in 1557 in the middle of a plague epidemic. When Samuel de Champlain finally returned to the Saint Laurent Valley 6 decades later, the villages of Stadacone and Hochelaga had completely disappeared, as had the Iroquoian populations who had lived there. The Saint Laurent Valley was now the domain of the Algonquians. What explains these mysterious disappearances? Was it due to wars between nations? Epidemics? Nobody knows. This is one of the biggest puzzles in our history. Today, there are many homages to Jacques Cartier. People living in Montreal will immediately think of the beautiful bridge that connects the city to the South Shore and that now bears his name. They will also think of the lovely Place Jacques Cartier in the heart of enchanting old Montreal. His name was also given to a river that crosses a beautiful national park in the vicinity of Quebec City. In numerous streets, boulevards, parks, schools, and apartment buildings bear his name all across Quebec and Canada. Many statues and monuments have also been dedicated to his memory. In France, the remains of the great explorer lie in Saint-Vincent de Saint-Malo Cathedral. Well, at least his head does. Statues and busts pay homage to Cartier in Paris and Saint-Malo. A beautiful pink rose also bears his name. And there you go. That's it for the life of the amazing explorer Jacques Cartier. What a life. It's extraordinary. It could easily be compared to some of the brave astronauts that were the first to be sent into space at the late end of the 20th century. It's an extraordinary life, amazing adventures. This is a guy well worth remembering. Now, I hope you enjoyed this series of videos. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel down there and leave some comments. It's always a great pleasure to hear from you guys. On that note, I say au revoir and see you soon.